Okay, 8th grade. This is our next assignment for your visual journal. So you should be at the point where you traced your photo on the final paper the last few classes, okay? What you're gonna do now, before we start using value on your final paper, if you look at your sketchbook assignments, you can see we have on October 3rd, value scales, okay? So that is what you are going to do next today if you are done with tracing your photo in your portrait, okay? So what you are going to do with this is turn to a page in your visual journal, the next one you have available, title it value scales, okay? And you're gonna make a rectangle at the top like you can see I did here. I've labeled it L for light, I've labeled it D for dark, okay? Within this rectangle, you are gonna practice creating value by going from darkest to lightest using pencils, okay? Below that, you're gonna make a circle, and this is going to be a sphere that we're practicing shading in, okay? All of this is to help you guys before you start shading your portrait, okay? I wanna introduce you to something you will be using for this. These are called sketching pencils, okay? You may never have noticed that the pencil we all use is usually a 2B, okay? Or this one is a 2HB, so it's a little bit darker than some of them, okay? This is the general pencil lead, okay? There are other levels of pencil lead, and I'm gonna show you this here. These little packets provide different levels that you can use to help achieve value, okay? So if we look, you go from B all the way up to 6B, okay? 2B is also included on there. So these are going to help you to get a wider variety of value in your portrait drawing. Quick reminder, value is just an element of art, which we speak about all the time, but it is simply the lightness or the darkness of a color, okay? So once you have created your rectangle, created your circle, all right, then you guys are ready to start creating your value scales, okay? So I'm going to dump this out. Now these have been kind of refilled and recycled, so you may notice that some of the pencils have different colors, but they all should have the correct levels. So for example, you still have all 4B, 6B, 3B, 2B, 5B, okay? All of those values are still here. I just refilled them so you would have them correctly because some of them get used up faster than others. Please, when you're using these, make sure to keep them organized. Make sure to put them back in the box nicely so that these things stay nice as you guys are working, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start with my darkest value, which would be my 6B, okay? And I'm gonna start over on the right side of my rectangle, and I'm going to simply place value over on that side, okay? Trying to fill the shape, trying to create a solid value. You don't want to have holes in there. We're not going to be able to tell what the value is if it's not solid, okay? Now, as I go lighter, I'm going to work the opposite direction. So if you look, I'm starting at 6B, and I'm working my way back up the scale, just like you see in your little packet here, okay? So now I'm going to go in with the 5B. Okay, and I'm going to slightly overlap that 5B, okay? And not only am I using the pencils here, but I also want to vary my pressure a little bit. It's a combination of having the right pressure and having the right pencil, okay? So now you can see it's slowly getting lighter, okay? I'm going to keep moving down. So I'm now to the 4B, slightly overlap my edge there, and you won't see a whole lot of difference in the 5B and the 4B, okay? They're pretty close. Notice I'm not worried about whether I'm staying exactly in this rectangle, okay? I'm more concerned about whether you guys are going to have a nice value scale. Okay, 3B, okay? And I'm gonna keep working back and forth here as I do this to kind of get my values different, all right? But for right now, I'm just kind of working one way across, okay? So now I'm gonna go all the way up to the B because I don't have a whole lot of room left here to get my lightest values, okay? The B is going to be a little bit lighter than your other pencils on its own, okay? So what I'm trying to get here is a transition of that dark to light, dark to light. As I continue to move to the left, I'm going to lighten up my pencil so that there's hardly any lead pressing down, okay? Now, I can say I have a nice dark, I can see I have a nice light. I wanna work a little bit on the transition between the values, okay? So that's mostly what takes the most time, is you just are kind of working back and forth between the pencils to get a nice transition. All right. You can also use what you guys remember, which is a blending stump. Okay, we've used these in the past. So sometimes I will take this and go over top of everything I've done here, and it's going to help me to blend those values. It's going to help me to get a nice subtle shift from my dark to my light. Okay, all this is rolled paper. okay? And they're in the drawer labeled blending stumps, okay? These little sketching pencils I'm showing you are in a new drawer that says junior high value pencils, okay? So that's where you'll pick those up. Look at how they are nicely back in the packages. Please make sure you put them away that way so the door shuts, okay? So now I've done my value scale. Now I'm gonna work on the sphere. When shading something, you need to first consider what's the light source. Pick a side. Your light could be on the right, your light could be on the left, okay? Now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you guys a systematic way to do this, I'm going to shade my sphere as if the light is coming from the left. So everything on the left side of my sphere is going to be the lightest. Everything on the right side of my sphere is going to be the darkest, okay? So if you're somebody who really likes to be systematic, you can break this up. Here I am going in with my 6B, okay? And I'm going to layer that as my 6B. If you're somebody who wants to number things, you can do that. So what I'm going to do here is shift from one to the other, okay? You don't always have to go all the way up the scale. So for example, I'm going to skip the 5B pencil because I just don't think that there's enough change in that. I'm going to go right into the 4B. So I basically skipped one of my values, and that's okay. Just whatever you think you need to make the drawing successful. Now I'm going to skip the 3B as well, and I'm going to go right into my 2B, okay, which is your basic pencil, okay? And then the next thing, my last pencil lead will be the B, which is the lightest value. All right, so what I've done here is label how my sphere is going to go from darkest to lightest, okay? This is good practice for you to do it on a sphere, because for your project, you will be shading with values over your entire photo, and with the goal of having a minimum of 5 values. Okay, we'll talk more about that once we get there. But before you worry about trying to shade something difficult like a face, we are just going to work on shading something simple like a sphere. Okay, so I'm going to go through here and fill in each section. Okay, and this is a fine way to do it, but you do want to make sure you go back and blend all of these things together, okay, so that you don't have it look like there's rings on the sphere. All right, now we're into the 2B section. Where's my 2B? There we go. Okay. And remember, it's not just the pencil, it's also the pressure. Okay, so in addition to having the right value stacking, I'm going to also try and make sure to lighten my pencil pressure as I go up. Okay, and you're going to see a lot of me going back and forth with this, all right, because that's part of creating the value. Okay, I got the B here. Okay, so this is my last value that I'm going to color in. What I have here, I'm going to use my blending tool to smudge. Okay, don't be too worried at this point about whether it's solid or not. That's part of the process. I'm going to have to keep going back and filling this in more and more and more. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, continue to darken a little bit, continue to transition a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go over the edges and really blend those things out. I'm going to go back in with my 2B here and keep that transition from dark to light, and really coloring over where I've transitioned those values so that it doesn't look so hard-edged. Okay, all right, now I'm going to take my blending stump, and my goal here is to, of course, just blend those values so that I get a subtle, soft shift, because something that has soft edges, like a sphere or like our face, will have darks and lights, but those darks and lights are gradual. Okay, so now I'm pulling that pencil lead that's still on my stump up to the highlight, which is why it's important you want to stop with your pencil lead a little bit before you want your highlight, because you're going to need to have area to blend it from that medium to that light. Okay, I'm leaving that final part white for my highlight. And now it's just about kind of smoothing this out and getting my sphere to look crisp and clear. Okay, so I'm going to kind of add a little bit more shadow to the edges. I might even layer up a little more value depending on how I want it to look. And you can see that's been quite a big transition. Okay, kind of layering a little bit more of that lead. Okay, so I can clearly see my lights touching my sphere, and as it recedes away, as the sphere recedes away from the light, I have my shadow. Okay? So that was your assignment for your value scales in your sketchbook.